Let's jump to number 4. Number 4 says, state the number of real zeros of the function whose graph is shown below. So we have two graphs. What is a real zero? What does that mean, guys? What's a real zero? Where it touches the x-axis, right? If you guys remember, up on the word wall, it says answers. What are answers? They're the x-intercepts, they're the solutions, the roots, the zeros. These are all words that mean answers, right? So, when we say real zeros, we're talking about answers, x-intercepts. So, where does this line cross the x-axis? It crosses right here at the value of -3. It crosses right here at the value of -2. Crosses right here at the value of -1. Technically, I should be saying the x value of -3, the x value of -2, the x value of -1, the x value of +1, right? That's another answer. And the x value of, it looks like it's 1/2 right there. Because it's halfway from 1 to 2, it's halfway there. Does that make sense? So when it asks for the real zeros, it's asking for the solutions, and it is all those solutions. -3, -2, -1, 1, and 1/2. So that will be on the final. What are the solutions to this guy right here? Anybody? X equals what? -3. What else? 0 and 2. That's it. Moving on. Number 5a. Notice that this is a quartic, not a quadratic. But however, you have a power of 4, a power of 2, and no variable. So it's kind of like if it were an x squared, an x, and a constant at the very end. So let's treat it like if it were a quadratic. And let's do the parenthesis. But instead of x times x giving you x squared, we have what times what giving us x to the 4th? What times what giving us x to the 4th? A squared, right? So we have a x squared, and now let's think what times what is -24, that if I combine together is -5. What do you guys say? What times what is -24 that if you add together is -5? -8, +3. That's absolutely correct. So we have factored, and we still have the equation equal to 0. Okay? Now, could we continue factoring? Well, if this were like a x squared minus 9, we could. Or if it were like a x squared minus 4, we could. But there's nothing else to factor here. So we are going to apply zero product property that says if you have something times something equals 0, you could take these somethings and separate them, set them each equal to 0. So on the left side over here, I want to do my equation x squared minus 8 equals 0. And when I solve this guy, I'm going to add 8 and add 8, and I'm going to end up with x squared equals +8. And then after that, I'm going to have to square root both sides to get rid of the square. So I square root. I'm going to end up with x equals, now the square root of 8, it could be, you can't really get a nice answer, but you could simplify it. Let me even go to the side over here and simplify the square root of 8. Square root of 8, if you break it down to get a perfect square number, 4 times 2, split it, you'll get 2 square root of 2. Not only that, when you apply a square root in an equation, you have to put a plus minus in front of your answer. So x equals plus or minus 2 square root of 2 is your final answer right there. X equals plus or minus 2 square root of 2. And that's barely for this left side when we set that equal to 0. So we also need to do the other side, set x squared plus 3 equal to 0. So let me do that over here. X squared plus 3 equals 0, which means that when I subtract 3 on both sides, I'll get x squared equals -3, which means that I need to apply a square root now, and x will equal plus or minus what? Could we take the square root of a negative number? I mean, we could, but what do we end up with? An imaginary. And the square root of 3, we're going to leave it as a square root of 3, but no longer negative. The negative came out, it became I. So there is your other answer. Technically, we have 4 answers here, guys. We have 4 answers. we have two real answers that are irrational, crazy decimals, one positive, one negative. And over here we have two imaginary, one positive, one negative. Okay? So those are our four answers for this fourth degree equation. Should I do another or should I move on to number 6? You guys want to do 5b or move on to number 6? So go ahead and factor it the way we did the other one. Parenthesis. Keep in mind that instead of x and x, we're going to have an x squared and an x squared. And now think, what times what is your c value? Negative 32, that if you combine together gives you positive 14. What do we get, guys? What times what is negative 32 that if you combine together is positive 14? Excellent. Plus 16 minus 2. 16 times negative 2, that'll give you negative 32. And if you add it together, it does give you positive 14. So now, since I have something times something equals 0, let's split them and set them each equal to 0. So I actually split them this way. And let's solve this guy. It's going to be x squared equals negative 16. If you subtract 16 on both sides, x squared equals negative 16. And of course, I need to apply a square root and a square root. So I will get x equals, because of the negative sign, I'm going to end up with an I. And could I do the square root of 16? Yes, I can. So what's my final answer? Plus or minus, don't forget plus or minus, 4i. Plus or minus 4i. Now this other one, we're going to add 2 to both sides. You're going to have x squared equals 2. You're going to apply a square root. And of course, you're going to get x equals plus or minus. And you can't do this. Well, that's an ugly plus or minus. Let me fix that. Plus or minus square root of 2. You can't really do it. So once again, we have 4 answers for this quartic equation. You have 2 imaginary answers. You have 2 real answers. They are irrational, though. They'll be crazy decimals if you actually did it on a calculator. Anyways, let's move on to the next one. Number 6. One factor of x to the third minus 19x plus 30 is x minus 2. Find the remaining factors. So they're telling you that one factor, if you wanted to factor this cubic trinomial, one factor is x minus 2, right? Now, if you know that x minus 2 is a factor of this, then technically when you divide this by this, you should get 0 as a remainder, right? So let's actually do synthetic division to prove that we get 0 as a remainder, and the values that are left over are going to be actually our remaining polynomial. Okay, so let's actually plug in the box, plug in the positive 2, because remember, you think opposite of what you see here. Plug in a positive 2, and then the coefficients, the 1, there is no x squared, so I put 0, the minus 19, and the plus 30. So, well, before we continue on, we recognize that number 6 is the same as number 1, right? Or not? It is, right? Okay, so if you went through that process, you would get these guys left over. And guys, that is your quadratic trinomial that's left over. But they want you to find the other factors. So you would have to take this x squared plus 2x minus 15. Let me actually write that down on the question that we're at. So if we went through the synthetic division, we'd get out this quadratic trinomial. And they want you to find the other factors, so we need to try to continue factoring. So when we continue factoring, what times what is negative 15, that if I combine together is positive 2, that would be a plus 5 times a minus 3. So when they say find the other factors, these are the other factors. They already gave you one of them. They gave you this one, and all 3 of them are completely factored of the original. But they gave you one of them. You use that with synthetic division to find the others. We have another one down here. Should we try B? Since A we didn't really do. So let's try B. We're going to use synthetic division. So inside the box we're going to put what? -2. And what are the coefficients? 1 for the x cubed. What else? -2. What else? -5 for the x. What else? 6, the constant. Put a line right there. As you go down, you combine 1 plus nothing. You just put the 1 down here. And then you take the -2, multiply it by 1, and you get -2 up here, right? And as you go down, -2 combined with -2, you get -4. Probably should have, let me change that to black. And as you go up, -2 times -4 is +8. As you go down, -5 and +8 is +3. And -2 times +3 is -6. And of course, this is going to be our remainder, which we know is 0. Because they gave us a factor, that means that the remainder has to be 0. So the remaining numbers here, if you put, this is your constant always, so this is going to be an x and this is going to be an x squared. Let's write that right up here. So it's going to really be x squared minus 4x. X squared minus 4x plus 3. And that could be factored further because they want you to completely factor it. They gave you one factor, which was x plus 2, and they want you to find the other factors. That'll be, what times what is 3? That if you combine together is -4. That'll be a -3 times a -1. So those are your other factors right there. You get it? Okay, guys, there's going to be, on number 7, there's going to be an easy question like this on the final exam. It says, describe the number and type of roots of the following equation. In other words, what are roots? Like we said earlier, the picture on the wall, roots are solutions. They are our x-intercepts. They're the answers, right? So when they say name the type of roots and of the following equation, the number and type of roots, they're saying how many answers do you have and what kind of answers are they? Now, notice this is like a little note I put right here for you. How many real, how many imaginary? They're not going to say that on your final. But obviously you're going to have multiple choice answers, so you should see that some of them are, that they tell you there's 3 real, 1 imaginary, or something like that. So let's look at this one. You could solve it if you'd like, which you probably should, at least to find out how many there are. So you're going to go plus 81, plus 81. So you're going to have x to the 4th equals 81. And do you square root? You 4th root, right? So you're going to go 4th root over here. So hopefully something times itself 4 times gives you 81. Let's check it out with the calculator. 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 is 81. So luckily, the 4th root of 81 is 3. So ladies and gentlemen, we have x equals, and of course you put a plus minus, and it is 3. So, what is our solution? How many solutions do we have, and what kind of solutions are they? I mean, they're not even gonna write that answer down. They just want how many real, how many imaginary. So you would say what? 2 real, 0 imaginary. You get it? Let's try another one here. X to the 3rd minus 64. We're going to add 64. It's going to be x to the 3rd equals 64. What now? Cube root. Cube root. Cube root. X to the 3rd equals 4. Now right here it's a cube root. On cube roots it can't be plus or minus. So, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have put a 3 right here. It's just x. So your answer is x equals 4. So you would say 1 real answer, and that's it. Quick style. So this one has 2 imaginary.